I think this is not yet the rally. I think they'll start waking up at zero point 0.2 million or 200,000 a coin. I would say retail is still sleeping on this. And anecdotally, most people I know have said, their friends and family are not reaching out to them yet to ask about Bitcoin. So we're not even close to peak retail awareness or retail mania. But, once you cross that next cognitive threshold of 0.2 M, that's what people think, okay, I'm missing out and I need to get this. And that's when they start piling in. It's definitely a concern, especially with altcoin treasury companies. I don't see it ending well for any company that is taking Ethereum or Solana or anything as a reserve asset. I think those will end up very badly in the long run. And I don't know if that will have a cascading impact on Bitcoin. I see if there is a big run up and a drawdown, like similar to previous cycles, that some of the Bitcoin treasury companies, the smaller ones, might fold, especially if their CEOs don't understand what it is that they're holding.
Samson Mow doesn't mince words. Bitcoin is the real deal and everything else is a distraction. In a world flooded with altcoins and regulatory chaos, Mao sees Bitcoin not only surviving, but thriving as the cornerstone of global digital finance. Ethereum, Solana, and other altcoin-based treasury strategies, he believes they're doomed to fail. Bitcoin's fixed supply and resilience through multiple cycles make it the only crypto asset truly suitable for long-term reserve accumulation. As institutional and sovereign interest grows, especially with the US slowly embracing stablecoins and considering pro-Bitcoin legislation, the path is clear. Bitcoin is becoming deeply embedded into the global financial fabric. The urgency, sky high. According to Mao, the US must act fast to build a Bitcoin reserve before the window closes.
Subscribe to Daily Bitcoin Trends for expert insights, real-time market updates, and proven crypto strategies. No hype, just smart analysis to help you make better decisions in crypto.
I think this has a lot less to do with Bitcoin than just the markets in general for the US. So the Genius Act, it adds clarity, but I don't think it changes fundamentally anything about Bitcoin. It gives a better structure and guidance on stablecoin issuers, and that is good for stablecoin issuers. But even without that, I see stablecoins continuing to grow. This is just the US government becoming more comfortable with the idea of stablecoins, and the fact that stablecoins like Tether are just taking up a massive amount of treasury buys and holdings equivalent to countries. I think Tether is ranked somewhere in the top 20 now of all holders of UST bills. The fact is Bitcoin and stablecoins are now integrated into the US economy permanently and in a very deep way. I think what is interesting for Bitcoin is, one, the audit of Fort Knox, as we've been promised, and two, passing of the Bitcoin Act from Cynthia Lummis that would allow the US to actively accumulate Bitcoin. Now, there's a bit of other interesting news that came out today, which was a reporter filed some Freedom of Information requests and found that the US Marshals only have about 28,000 Bitcoin now, I believe. And that's a lot less than was expected. So I think these bills currently in motion or on the table are missing the bigger picture. The bigger picture is that the US needs to accumulate Bitcoin very, very rapidly if it wants to have a significant Bitcoin reserve treasury. So the window is closing. And I'm not sure they really realize that yet now, because if they did, they would be talking about the Bitcoin Act, not these other bills. It's definitely a concern, especially with altcoin treasury companies. I don't see it ending well for any company that is taking Ethereum or Solana or anything as a reserve asset. I think those will end up very badly in the long run. And I don't know if that will have a cascading impact on Bitcoin. I see if there is a big run up and a drawdown, like similar to previous cycles, that some of the Bitcoin treasury companies, the smaller ones, might fold, especially if their CEOs don't understand what it is that they're holding. I see it less as a risk with MicroStrategy, or Strategy rather, because Saylor has proved himself through one of the biggest bear markets that we've had in recent years, and he's held and he's kept on accumulating. The newer entrants, I it's unsure whether they have the fortitude to survive a drawdown. I think many of them are just copying, trying to fast follow strategy, and that's definitely a red flag in my view. So I would say the bigger ones, or at least companies like Blockstream, helmed by Adam Back, are less risky because Adam understands Bitcoin to the fullest extent possible, and that means it's a safer investment. But smaller ones, I would definitely say no, and definitely altcoin treasury companies, I wouldn't touch those with a 100-foot pole.
Samson Mow warns of altcoin treasuries collapsing under market pressure, highlighting the difference between surface-level hype and true monetary resilience. Ethereum and Solana treasuries might look attractive in a bull market, but long-term, their volatility and lack of scarcity make them fundamentally weak reserve assets. Bitcoin, by contrast, has proven itself in multiple bear markets, with firms like MicroStrategy and Blockstream leading the way. While retail sentiment remains quiet and prices hover around inflation-adjusted highs, Mao believes we're still in the early innings of this bull run. He projects a potential explosion to 500K in the next 6 to 12 months if macro and retail alignment happens fast. Meanwhile, stablecoins like Tether are already functioning as de facto national treasuries, embedding crypto further into U.S. financial infrastructure. The real concern? The US is not moving fast enough to secure its place in the Bitcoin future.
It's kind of depressing to see alts run because that usually brings us back down as a whole. So Bitcoin rises, and then the people that are investing in altcoins make some money, and then they pump their coins, right? So it's always a cycle. Bitcoin goes up, it leads the pack, and then you see alts run a bit. And then things come back down, and all the investors in altcoins get liquidated, or they blow up somehow, or something happens, and then Bitcoin comes down along with it a little bit, and then we go back up. But the cycle rinses and repeats over and over and over. I don't really worry too much about the alts because they're all very small cap coins, and compared to Bitcoin, it doesn't really matter. They can easily manipulate the floats and move their prices, and they can drive their prices through direct announcements like Ripple trying to do business, right? Like, what is Ripple? It's a company now, but it has a crypto coin. But in real world, that should technically be a stock or a security. But here we are. But I'm not really worried about that. I think in the long run, Bitcoin dominance will continue to increase. And I think this might be the final alt season, if there is one, but it doesn't look very promising. The biggest challenge for most governments and nation state adoption in general is just red tape. It takes a lot of effort to get something done. And not every country has a central leader that can just pass a law. There's a lot of deliberation, discussion, and you see this again in the US, right? Like, it's a very chaotic, fragmented procedure to get anything passed. And this is the biggest barrier, I think, to nation-state adoption. We've tried a lot at Jan3 to try to follow the top-down approach and engage the governments to educate them and see if they will pass some laws. But we've shifted our strategy a bit since then to take smaller projects like sandbox projects, or creating special economic zones, or rolling out some prototype test projects, if you will. And I think this is probably more pragmatic because that gets them into the Bitcoin game at a much smaller scale, and a scale at which they're comfortable with. I think getting a country to make Bitcoin legal tender is much harder and far longer a path to adoption than. Well, it has to do with all the adoption happening in the world today. You have countries adopting Bitcoin. You have the ETFs, which are just taking in a massive amount of capital and eliminate the bottleneck for moving capital into Bitcoin from the legacy markets. There is no more barrier. And then you have companies like Strategy and now Blockstream that are also moving into the treasury space. And Strategy alone has accumulated 600,000 plus Bitcoin. So, just like doing quick back of the napkin math, it just doesn't seem possible that we are still hovering around, inflation adjusted Bitcoin all-time highs from 4 years ago at 100 to 120,000. we should be well over 200,000 just by my approximate estimate. I think this is not yet the rally. I think they'll start waking up at 0.2 million or 200,000 a coin. I would say retail is still sleeping on this. And anecdotally, most people I know have said, their friends and family are not reaching out to them yet to ask about Bitcoin. So we're not even close to peak retail awareness or retail mania. But, once you cross that next cognitive threshold of 0.2 M, that's what people think, okay, I'm missing out and I need to get this. And that's when they start piling in. It seems like we're not close to it yet. We still need to do like a 8x from here to get 1 million. So maybe 2026. But I don't discount the possibility that we can have a very rapid run up in the next 6 months if all factors line up and you do have retail coming on board. Well, if you break down the inflation rate, the real inflation rate, and you peg it to something real like eggs, you get 11% annually. So if you apply that to the previous all-time high in 2021, that takes us to somewhere around 101K. So, that's kind of the floor. That's just keeping up with inflation. That's Bitcoin just keeping up with inflation. So 120K, 130K, that means you're beating inflation by 20% over a 4-year period or 30% over a 4-year period, which is not really spectacular. So I think we have a lot of room to run. The bull market has legs. And I think we can go probably anywhere up to 500,000 to 1 million in the next 12 months, because this is also a delayed market movement too. If you think about it, we should have ran already. We should already have been at 200,000 a coin, and we're still at 120.
In Samson Mow's view, Bitcoin is the foundation for the future of finance, not just as a hedge, but as a necessity. He sees altcoin cycles as distractions that repeatedly siphon value and delay true adoption. Mow warns that unless governments, especially the US, shift strategies and focus on accumulating Bitcoin reserves now, they risk losing monetary sovereignty in a digitized world. While ETF flows and stablecoins continue embedding crypto into the mainstream, retail investors are still asleep, waiting for Bitcoin to cross a psychological threshold like 200K before waking up. This isn't just speculation, it's a warning. The clock is ticking, and the race for Bitcoin accumulation is underway. Whether you're a government, an institution, or an individual, the message is the same. Bitcoin is your last chance to opt out of a broken monetary system before it's too late.